Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of You Win or You Learn. I am Dylan Haskin. So in this next episode, I'm going to be interviewing Troy Davies from Retroyspective. Troy is a videographer here in Cape Town, and him and I go way back. He was one of the first people to actually pay me for a job. So I'm looking forward to sharing this conversation with him. In this conversation, we talk about how he transitioned from working in the audio industry into starting his own business. We also spoke about some of the projects that for him were quite pivotal in his journey. And also we speak a little bit about AI and how we are navigating that space. So sit back and relax and enjoy this episode with Troy. Troy, how's it?
Hello, I made it.
Thanks for coming.
To a podcast.
Now you've made it.
The big time
on my podcast. Hopefully we'll get 100 views this time.
I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah, thanks, man.
So we're not just chatting on the sides of production in between takes. We actually can have a conversation.
Yeah. So a little background about like Troy from my side. Troy was the first. You were the first. Wait, were you? You were the second person to ever pay me for creative work. And that was, I don't know if you remember, was those like downhill events that you did?
Yeah. The Daniel skateboarding.
No, the
Daniel mountain biking. Okay.
So long term, well, this was probably like 2011. I met Troy through an ORMS competition, and we had all like submitted a film to the same competition that ORMS had. And your film ended up getting the top 5, and like so did mine, and so did a couple other people. And I went and I messaged everybody who had made the top 5 saying, good job on your film, it was cool to see and whatever. And then like Troy messaged me back saying, oh yeah, I saw your video and you actually like stole my song.
You love the story. Yeah.
So yeah,
I can't remember being at in the top 5, but anyway.
Yeah. And then, so long story short, I had found a video on the internet that I liked the song of, and it was back then when I didn't know you weren't supposed to do that kind of stuff. So I copied the song. I think it was a First Descent ad. So I was like, I like the song from it. And I used that song in the video that I submitted to this ORMS competition. And that song ended up being a song that you had commissioned for your video, which was that First Descent video.
Yeah, well, a friend had made it for me. So it was like not even something bought. It was something custom made. I was the first and last custom made song I've ever done.
Oh, really?
So at least it ended up in more than one place.
Yeah.
Funnily, the client didn't actually like the song that much. Okay. They were like, it's too slow. But Charlie, who was in the band that you joined, after Charlie and the original crew of Blackstone Radio had left, he composed that. I really liked it. So, you liked it too.
I liked it so much, I stole it.
But everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. So that's kind of my intro to you. But I think just for people who like don't know you, who are you? What do you currently do? And then maybe let's get into like how you got to where you are now.
Cool. Who am I? I'm Troy. I run Retroyspective, which is, well, primarily it's just me. But over the years, it's involved lots of people like yourself and people that I'm close to in the industry to fulfill video production work and some photography work, and pretty much everything in the creative space. How did I get to where I am now? Yeah. So my like actual background from the brief history is after school sound engineering. That's how I know what your microphones are. And from that into the audiovisual industry for quite a few years. And then in 2011, left that and started video, and actually started with music. Like helped out on a music concert shoot for a friend at the Barnyard Theatres. And that then spiraled. Well, it was quickly, I was like, I could make the same amount of money in 2 days or 3 days being like an assistant shooter as what I was earning in a month as a regional manager for a national audiovisual company. I was like, this is a no-brainer. I'd always held a camera. I'd always been passionate about photography, but I'd never like charged for it. It was just like I took photos of surfing and skating and played around with things. So that's how I actually started into it, creating content and
When you were working at the audio place, like was there like a specific thing that happened that you like realized, oh, I want to now go into this full time, or did you sort of do it? Did it overlap for a while, or how did that transition work?
So I started that up in Cape Town for that company, and it was a valuable lesson. I learned a lot of lessons working for that company. Some of them are still used today, but at the end of the day, it became a sort of clash of interest. I was a hard-headed 20-something-year-old, and I wanted to do things my way. And the people who owned the company were based in Johannesburg, so it was all remotely. There's this kind of micromanagement that happens, and a sense of fear because they don't have complete control because you're running things away. And I mean, at the end of the day, it came down to people want to grow something and make as much money as they could. So they ended up hiring a person to speed up the process. And it was like I was like, who is this person who's been put into my business, my branch, and coming in like they're the boss of the branch. So I was straight away like, took it up with the owner and said, like, what's going on? And he was like, this is my decision. And he's like, if you don't like it, you can go. And I was so hard-headed. I was like, cheers. I was super, super like angry about it. But I mean, I've let it go. I learned a lot of lessons from the owner of that company. Like some of the things I think he used to say apply. Like I could relate it maybe to him. Mm-hmm. I used to say something like, a fish stinks from the head down, talking about like bad management.
Okay.
So I would like directly transfer this information back to him. But a lot of other really, really good lessons that I learned I learned how to deal with government tenders. I learned how to deal with like multi-million rand installations, people's like things in their homes, like big multi-million rand homes, and they're allowing you into their space and working within that space within an audiovisual environment. I also learned that in that world, products, when they fail, it's not the product's fault. It's the person who sold you the product. And I was stuck with that. So that was a hard place to be in, because no matter how well we did our job, if this piece of electronic equipment failed, you were the one who sold it to the client. So you're the one responsible for it. And it's not Sony, who made a bad piece of tech, or it's a bad run of models. It was you. So that was kind of all added up together. So it was an easy decision for me to go, cool. And I left going, what am I going to do now? I mean, I left without a car because I didn't have anything, and made some plans, organized a car. I branded it like straight away, Retroyspective. And I had done a few like on the weekend side hustle things, like filming some stuff for friends, like this music concert and and I was filming friends down your skateboarding and things like that at the time. And then I just decided, okay, I'm going to try to do that. And I did a little bit of sort of everything. And then, off you go. And then I picked up my first like really big job, which started it all off. I can go into that.
Yeah.
Do you want to answer?
I wanted to ask you, the time that I met you was like 2011. Where were you in your like stage at that point?
So I started Retroyspective in 2011. So it was like September 2011. So it might have been 2012. If you met me that time.
You are right. It was 2012.
Yeah. So I started. So it was like September 2011. I remember that time because I remember like September 11, the original September 11, and that always stuck with me. Like being in college, and I was like helping my dad out at his business and sitting on this little TV he had a car workshop, and I was watching these planes fly into buildings and like not believing it. So it like that I started what I'm doing now on September 2011. Was kind of a weird play on numbers. So
2012 was
probably around 2012. So I think it's all about the people that you know, and like a friend of a friend from school. So I've always been a cyclist, and I've always loved riding. I had a break from it from a couple of years when I lived in the UK. When I came back, I picked up mountain biking again. As a kid, I was like a roadie and used to ride league races and was a lot more slender than I was now and could actually like ride up a hill much faster than I can. But so one of the guys from my school was a bit younger than me, and this was probably the farm where you worked at, Robert Stark, who makes really good beer, by the way, now. So he built trails on his farm, and he wanted to have a shuttle day. And I think the management lessons and management experience I'd had with my AV company, because I had like 5, 6, I had a few staff that worked for me, so I had to manage those people and everything. So it was an easy transition to manage a production. And I asked everyone I knew around who wants to come along and like help film this day. And like everyone did a favor because it was like not really much budget, but it was like a really, really fun day. So, but it was like the street cred that I needed to, like, you don't just like walk into the downhill industry or downhill community and then like, hey, I'm gonna make you guys look cool. They're like, well, we are cool. Like we don't, like you got to kind of be invited, and then you've got to prove yourself. So that was my intro into it, and started doing more like. And I loved the gravity side. I always liked something that was more alternative. So like, even though I was riding a bike, it's got to be closer to that feel like skating, and downhill skateboarding and downhill mountain biking. That all just like resonated with me. That was stuff I really enjoyed, and it obviously looked cool on camera. Like that was the time that like Red Bull was starting to make more like cooler content or like building up their thing. But the real big breakthrough was because of all of that, I ended up getting a call through a friend, relative, I can't remember how it all linked together. And before I knew it, I was sitting at like an advertising agency, having a meeting, doing a project at the Cape Epic for Oakley. And I was like, okay, cool. And just trying to be as cool as I possibly can, because now these guys were talking about budgets in dollars and these are all the things we can do. And it was like professionally storyboarded, and like the game had changed like significantly. And even though it was mountain biking, it's a different kind of mountain biking. Like it's stage racing. It's like performance orientated. It's not creative riding. It's like placement on podiums based on like, endurance. So it was a huge learning curve, and also daily deliverables at the Epic in 2013.
Yeah, that's different to now, because like now it's almost a given to do dailies, but the computers are so much faster to be able to do that back then.
So this was, so I again, like pulled into I actually advertised at the point and found an editor. So he lives in Durban now, Graham. Still does photography and film, but he's got a cool business that puts up like, it's called Ocean Eye, that has webcams all over the beaches all around. So all around South Africa. Anyway, we went in there, like very unprepared, but we had a great agency that we worked with, and the creator from the agency helped build the story because he had ridden the race and he had, he understood the storytelling side of it, and he understood what Oakley as a brand on an international scale wanted. Like he wasn't new to this, but he knew that we had, like he was happy with my eye for like my visual way of telling the story, and loved the way that I like listened to what he said and then like also had ideas for it. So we kind of pre-told all the stories. We did all the interviews with various people before the race, and we tried to edit as much as we could before the race. But all the B-roll, so all the action was filmed daily. So we basically took a day's stage, filmed, or I filmed all the B-rolls pretty much on my own. I used some of the stuff from the TV production company that like I couldn't get, like helicopter stuff, and then like kind of molded the interviews to match each day's theme per se. And we even graded each video according to a different color of like the lens. So I had like a chart with like what color a lens would look like. So say it would be like a slightly blue tint. So I would grade each day's footage differently based on like, but it wasn't like you showed those glasses or anything. It was like a very subtle way of like just kind of adding things into like, it was called Behind the Lenses. So that was the whole idea. So I'm very proud of that series. It was cool. It's probably in 720p. And
because that was the only way to get to
and no,
like 50 frames a second.
Yeah, I mean, anything to get slow-mo. Like I wanted slow-mo from almost as much of a slow-mo fan as Hayden Brown, but I wanted slow-mo from the beginning, and like using Twixtor and optical flow in Final Cut was like the way to go.
I remember that.
Yeah, so they actually still work. They even work better now. Like they're so great, but no one really uses it anymore. I think slow-mo, like a lot of things in our industry, has been like, we've seen it all. Like, what do we do next?
Yeah. So that, how did things go from that Cape Epic job? So that was obviously your first like big project. Did that sort of give you quite a bit of confidence going forward, or how was that experience going forward from there?
Okay, so I think confidence as far as what I made, I look back, some of it I look back now and I'm like, oh, maybe not some of the stuff, but I was always like happy with what I made because I put so much effort into like, because it was always shooting and editing. Like I didn't, even though I had an editor with me, I was still sitting with him in those edits on the Cape Epic. But everything that I've created, even from the early days, I'll still look back on it now and I'm happy with what it was, because at the time I'm happy with it. It was great. Everyone I created for it was great. But what that did do for me was, because of like, it was a properly paid job, and like, I mean, it was over 8 days plus a few days pre-production and additional shooting. So we're talking about a 10, 11 day shoot. It was still a fraction of the price of what a company like that would pay for a commercial, but it was like a big amount of money for me. So I was able to buy, I think at the time I had like one small DSLR body that could kind of film stuff, but I was able to buy like a MacBook Pro, a 5D Mark III or Mark II at the time, Mark II I think then, I don't know. And then I had 2 cameras. I bought all my lenses. I basically had a full kit bag. And I was renting stuff things I didn't have, so I was able to take it all. So I didn't come out of the job with a lot of like profit per se, but I didn't have to rent kit. I had like all my kit paid for. So that meant I could go do productions. I could hire an assistant, and I didn't need to like worry about the gear. So that was like the biggest, like that's a massive, I mean, like the barrier to entry in this industry is huge.
Because of gear, you mean?
If you are into all the gear, I think that's a whole another thing we can go into just now. I've been thinking about that quite a lot over the last while. But at the time, phones weren't shooting ProRes with 3 lenses on them. So like to get a substantially nice picture that was good enough for the internet was like those DSLRs were the cameras to do it, unless you went into the next level, which was shooting on Reds or Aries or whatever it was. But yeah, that was the boost. That was such a kickstart. But the base work was still there. Like there was things done beforehand. There was smaller jobs done. I mean, you don't just you get lucky, but like you kind of get lucky for a reason.
Yeah, and if you get lucky and you're not ready for it, that can also be a bit of a disaster.
Cool, that's the name of this episode. You get lucky, but you get lucky for a reason.
It's like you win or you totally fail, and So going from there, how was that? Was like the Cape Epic? It was a big job, and got your gear. How did things go from?
Honestly, it's a bit of a blur. Like that's a standout thing, I think. Then I was a lot more proactive, I suppose, with trying to get new clients. So I think it might have been just before that time, or could have been. Actually, might have. It was before, because that's when I had pitched. I had actually gone like an agency would, or as a director would, to First Ascent at the time, and pitched to, like, here's my friend. He's an awesome runner. Can you supply me with some gear? And I had a slot for the piece on like a outdoors show on Supersport. They're like, here's a 15-minute piece. Do you want to make something? So I had free TV time, essentially. I didn't have to pay for it. I went to go find a sponsor the same way you would find a sponsor for a YouTube show now, but like this was the thing then. I don't think I've ever done anyone since then. But I basically made them a commercial of a guy running all over the place with no text, no voiceover, just in different gear and running in beautiful places. It was just supposed to be like a cinematic film. So like I was like, that's the music that you're talking about. So that stands out. And then after Cape Epic, I think because I was in that environment, you get to meet so many people from all around the world. You meet professional riders. I mean, at the time, you're working for a great brand. I mean, like when you've got Oakley or a Red Bull or a Adidas under your belt, it's like the kind of brands that people notice, obviously. So, and you can definitely use that in your CV for other things as well. So I think I did a lot more other like cycling things, and then I did some stuff for TV. And at the time, I never started what I did. I called it Retroyspective Digital Media Productions in the beginning. I've taken away the digital media because everything's digital now, but that was there for a reason, because I didn't want to be in this like traditional TV world. I wanted to be someone who created something and created the end product from the beginning. And it was supposed to be for like internet advertising. Like at the time, people were calling and asking for a viral video. Like that was literally the requests. Sometimes I'm like, okay, cool. But now, lost my train of thought there. Back to... I've completely lost my train of thought.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So basically from after like up until where you are now, how has things been going? What are the major like differences between, say, how things were back in those original Cape Epic days, what you're making, maybe more for like, it wasn't for social media necessarily, where now, I don't know, we get a lot of social media content requests to be made. How's things going there?
It's one of the first questions I ask clients, like, where's this going? Like, is it going on TV? I mean, people generally say it's a TV commercial, like, and then most people are like, oh, TV commercial budget. But where's it going? Is it going on YouTube? Is it going on your website? Are you wanting to create a reel? Like, we as creators have to know what we're making now, because it affects how you make it. That wasn't really the case back then. You filmed everything sort of the same way. And back then it was always short content, but short content was 2 minutes, 3 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes. And then your longer form stuff was 15, 20 minutes, or like a 26-minute show. I never really ever made anything to that degree. So most of my stuff has always been within the 5-minute mark and trying to get a really kind of inspirational story of some kind out within that time. The deliverables used to always be YouTube and sometimes other platforms. How the Cape Epic is a great timeline to see how that has changed. So number one, I've never since then, and 11 years later, had a budget even half of what that Oakley budget was. That's crazy.
Sure.
Like, even working with other people, you've worked with me on the Cape Epic, like not even close to what that was. So that was like extremely lucky. And I think some brands just see the value in what they do and what they get out of it. I mean, there's not only the money that they spend on the creatives per se, they're also putting money into the athletes. Like, for instance, Nino Schurter was one of the people we covered on that Epic. Like, he was the year afterwards. But they're paying him as well. So like, us as creatives see this, we're like, oh, this brand's spending a lot of money, but that's probably a small portion of what they're having to pay the athlete to appear in your stuff. So starting to see what the deliverables are started to change from, so it would bounce backwards and forwards. Some years it went back to like YouTube videos, which were standard 16:9, kind of minute to 2 minutes, as meaningful as possible. And then definitely in the last 3 years, reels. And there's almost no, like when I went this year, I only went for a couple of days, and I was doing a bike launch for Live Cycling. So it was still for global. We did some stuff about the bike before, but they wanted to have some stuff from the Cape Epic. So I made 2 quick reels, and it just lacks the emotion of the stuff we've done before. Like, you need to put the time in to get some, like, a really good story, especially even at a race like that, just chatting to people afterwards, into like getting to know the riders really well, really getting like under the kind of skin of what's happening there. I feel like you can't make content quick enough for how fast it's being consumed. So that's a tough place to be in for like my style of working. So like I would always call it more of a documentary style. Like I love interviewing people, and I love filming things cinematically to like mix up with those interviews, and then hopefully let the story play out a little bit more. But like there just doesn't seem to be the same demand for that anymore. Like the brands don't find value maybe in telling those stories as much as they used to. That's my feeling on it. Everybody wants a TikTok. I'm not on TikTok.
Yeah, I think it has been a challenging thing when I suppose it's maybe what people want to watch, or not everybody, obviously. There's people who do watch long form documentary content, but what is the trend of what people are watching, which is all now short form content. So people want that. How has that been for you then to like transition into that? Or do you have like a lot of like resistance in another vertical video type of project? Or is it like, okay, cool, I can see that as a separate thing to and I also do this too, but it's less of it all. Like how do you take on that?
When I do my, when being a Nikon ambassador from 2019 till like 2022, or friend of the brand, I don't know what my official title was. They called us the Z creators or something. That was also a super nice opportunity to get recognized by Nikon International, and then use some gear, getting some gear, getting better prices. Anyway, I did a lot of like part of that deal was doing talks for them and sharing the knowledge I had, and I went and did a few. And I still stick to my guns of like how to shoot something, just because I think, number one, there's a reason why cameras have like film in this landscape version, and we see in that version. And just because we're holding our phones that way now, we don't know what's going to happen in a few years' time. There might be like some holographic phone that, you know, like you can watch it in landscape again, and it's beautiful. Like Instagram is dictating the way that we should see content, which I see a lot of people resisting against. Like professional post-production companies, they still now putting videos up saying, keep your phone, like rotate your phone. Mm-hmm. I mean, I made a few videos like that, but I'm not putting in the beginning I put that. Now I just make vertical stuff. So I always said to the people at the workshops that I had, film it in landscape and just think about that it's going to be cropped. I mean, we did this the other day. And to me, it's future-proofing the footage that you have. And yes, I was like super resistant to crop because it looks terrible. Like, you know how much is missing from that image. Mm-hmm. And now you just kind of have the subject filling the whole screen. But on the plus side of it, the cameras are like, everything's shot in 4K now. So like you can shoot it all in 4K and crop it in, and it still like retains a great quality at 1080p for real. So my deliverables now are like a standard. Mm-hmm. I film it the way I'd like to film it. I still try to shoot it as good as I can, but I'm like, you get a full edit, and then you get a 9:16 edit, the same one cropped. And then you can choose how much you want to pull out of that for your, go make your own reels. And then for some clients, you make like, a few teasers and things, which also I'm finding like almost like pointless now, like creating a 10-second teaser for a 1-minute reel. Like, what's the point? But it's just like extra editing time. So I find it like, I try to put the tools in their hands and go, like, let me give you everything you need so you can be self-sufficient in creating like more, like help making this the content that you've paid for work more for you. So I'm not like totally against it. I'd love to make more longer form stuff, but I mean, realistically, I get it. Brands are not like to pay someone to go out for 4 days or 5 days to make a 3-minute video. it doesn't happen that much anymore. Like hardly ever happens, to be honest with you. Like they want you to go out for a day and create something from that, and you can only make something so great within a few hours. Like it's, you know, especially if you, I mean, I shoot mostly my own, so, and then you get the photograph requests on the side as well, so keeping that into it. So
it's interesting. When we lived here in South Africa, then we went overseas for like 5 years, and I came back in. So I was working in South Africa. I had experience from doing a job here. I went overseas, came back, and I noticed such a big shift in when I was here the first time to like 5 years later. Because in the beginning, I was just like a stills photographer. I did stills. They wanted the photos. 2 to 3 days later, that was the expectation. When I came back, they were like, oh, can you also take a few like video clips, and can you send the photos on the go, like to your phone? And then that's how much it had changed in those like 4 years of what clients were expecting. That was like different to previously. And it was all by one person, right? And now obviously it's like reels on the same day plus stills on the side potentially. It's quite interesting.
I think you should blame Craig Gillespie for that. I think he started that trend. Like we shot a lot of jobs together, and I mean, I'm not saying he started the trend, but he, like when the wireless capabilities started becoming really good, and especially I picked it up on the Nikon cameras. Like you would have your phone like hot linked basically, and you could set it up that it would send like a 2 megapixel file. Like every photo you took, it was already on your phone. Sure. So we would be shooting like a bike race, and while Craig was driving to the next stop, he would have already sent off like a few selects and just done like a quick edit on the phone while driving. And when I'm like, this is crazy. Like you're not even looking at the stuff, bro. But they just wanted the content for stories. Like, no. So yeah, that I still don't really subscribe to that, but I don't shoot a lot of stills at events where things are needed like now. Luckily with the video side, it's still not really needed now. So you get like the phone content creators, I would call them, who are like filming on little gimbals, and I find that they are there at the same shoots that I am as well. But like they are giving something straight away, or it's live, or it's like edited as a reel, and I'm doing something that's a bit more cinematic and told a bit later on, and kind of meant to live a bit longer, even though they don't really live very long these days on these social platforms. That's it's a tough place to be, because a lot is expected from people, and there's a lot of people who are coming up like straight out of college, figuring things out and picking up a phone or a GoPro or a Insta360 or whatever it is, and creating stuff like fast. Like this is what they've, like the same way that I stepped into a world and had a lot of opportunities 10 years ago, like specializing in like sort of YouTube and internet videos, not TV. People that have like stepped, there's like a new category to that, and they've gone, we are specializing straight as like making reels, and they like know all the trend. They're watching a lot of content, they're consuming, they know all the trend that's happening, but how much meaning and value there is behind those things, I'm not so sure. My ethos has been quite simple, and it's like, what do you do? And this maybe comes back down to the gear and the whole story. And it's like, I'm a storyteller, whether that is photographs, if I can try to tell the story as best as you can in a couple of photos, and it's a really difficult job to do, but it's a nice challenge, or being a storyteller through video. And I don't get too hung up on the quality side of things. Like there is always going to be people who are going to be like, oh, you know, it like has to be shot at like this specific style, and this is the correct way to do it, and you have to have this variable ND and like all these things. And I'm like, if I had to do it like that, I wouldn't have got that shot. And like, to me, it's more important to have the shot, because that's what's telling the story, than not having a shot at all, because I'm trying to like get it the most cinematic way as possible. And not be on like a news reporter who's constantly ready to press record, or filming every single thing. So like telling the story, I think it goes like, if I think about my very, very first video that I like pretty much taught myself how to edit on, was I went with the GoPro and we went on this like downwind skateboard mission from like town back to Tableview, all along the bike path. And the bike path was new, and the My City bus, I think it was to be in about 2010. So the My City bus was like fresh after the World Cup. And everyone got together and everyone caught the My City bus, and I like filmed all these little things, but like I added in the things that like you would have as a crew, like the bus doors opening and like someone tapping their card and like getting on the board, and then the close-ups of the wheel, and then like cruising, and then like the happy people and the general wide shot. So right up to the end, like I told a full recap of the day, including all from the details to the big wide stuff. So like imagine like lensing with a GoPro, like that's what I did. And then editing that together. But it was a cool story because it was easy to tell in sequential order. And I always kind of try to keep that idea, even like in doing manufacturing things like I've been doing recently, like still trying to tell the story from the little details like to the big wide picture, and trying to make that work as best as possible without, I never went to film school, so you just figure it out.
I feel like there's a lot of, so for me, there's the half of me that is the creative, and there's the other half of me that is the service provider to the client, in a sense, because what I do is like filming, but how I do it with the client is that it's the other side of me. It's like listening to what they want, what they need, and trying to see how can I balance that with their. I feel like a lot of, it almost seems like the more creative you are, maybe the worse you are at the service provider part of it. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I'm just kind of, like the really, really good creative people that almost need someone else to help them out with that business side.
Well, I feel like that's a right side brain, left side brain thing. Yeah. Very much. I would agree with you.
So I think for me, I've in general maybe more like naturally had a balance between that, because I don't see myself as like crazy creative out in space with my mind, coming up with crazy ideas, and I seem to be quite like balanced with that. But I'm wondering what your experience been with that, sort of dealing with the client side of things, which is maybe the more left side or right side, whichever one, and then like maybe, I don't know, sometimes it seems like with really creative people, they really like struggle to do something that the client wants, just for their sake, even though it's maybe going to be worse. If the client wants it, just get it done. Yeah. At least that's how I will see it. Because for me, I'm almost like, because it's a business, I'm like, I'm technically a service provider first, creative like second. How's that been for you? What's your like view on that kind of stuff?
So I think there's two sides to how to do this. And you and me might be quite similar in the first one, which would be like the reactive creative, where we would get a request in, hi, I need this done, I need this product covered, I need this event shot. And I think we would probably do a lot more of that. And then you get the people who go out there who can be a creative, but also maybe as like from an agency point of view, or when I say agency, I mean like, so you're pitching the idea. So you're going, so you're going, hi, you have this product. I have this story about your product that we can tell to help you sell that product. And you've dictated to them how you're going to do it, which makes maybe things a bit easier or a bit harder. But now you've really got to you've be 100% invested into that idea and create that with whatever, however that imagery is, stills, video, whatever. And that has to work. It has to sell their product. And they've now fully taken your side. And I love that concept of that. I've got it right a couple times, like with that first Ascent thing. But I've generally been a more reactive side, or like taking the request and then putting it into my format and going, okay, cool. What is the problem? This is how I solve it. So I think we probably fit a bit more into the analytical side of thinking. So you're thinking about like the deal, what's it like, first of all, like what's it going to cost? Like how much am I going to charge? How much time am I going to put into this? Okay, is this going to, like, are these guys going to pay for this? Because they want to, have some hot air balloon lifting a car up into space, like something, whatever. It's like, how can I make this work? Like I always want to solve the problem. Mm-hmm. And And then you've got to like switch your brain away from the money side of it and the analytical side into the creative side of it. And that is a hard switch. I've probably gotten a bit better at it, but I think I also shoot quite analytically because I'm like, okay, boom, this one, if I got it, yes. Okay, next one, because I often work on my own. And I'm used to working on my own. So when you're working with other people, it's also so great because you know you've got this other sides covered. But I think the hardest part of the business versus creative side comes at the end. One, when you're saying a creative person sort of struggles with the business side of things, or they're like stubborn. So they want to do something because they say this is right. So I'll have that in post-production. So you've shot everything the right way, but then now they've seen, because at the end of the day, what is all the filming trickery and all the stuff you want to do? It doesn't mean anything until like all the client's actually going to see and is what the audience is seeing is the image. And it's like probably my second most important lesson I talk about on my workshop. One was like film it this way, like don't go into vertical video. Firstly, your lenses are going to look really weird on the top and the bottom. Second one is, I've just blanked. Remind me of where I was before about going into vertical video syndrome.
All right, so we're talking about the edits and how it comes out for the client.
Sorry, stubborn. Okay.
Yeah.
So being super stubborn with that, and you put your like soul into something. You start from the music. You've cut every single thing to the beat, and they're like, I don't like the music, or you know, it might not fit to their brand, or some person doesn't, or like move that around to or how about doing this? And I'm like, no, and like I've gotten a lot better at that. So that's hard because there you're like directly, like saying no is like, yeah, it's like in defiance of the person paying for what they want. But it's hard to have that balance as like a storyteller versus the business side of things versus like what you think is creatively correct. And also they don't know everything that hasn't been shown, like all the other shots that haven't been seen, or the order or the three different ways you had tried the order of certain shots and gone, I'm going to go with that one. Like there's a reason why you chose that. Sometimes in fairness, like it can be swapped around. I have a great example of this. I did this thing with Greg Minar in George, and Greg played golf and then rode his mountain bike. I mean, the greatest of all time, downhiller, playing golf and riding down the mountain. So he'd hit the ball, and then he'd jump on the bike, and then we'd film him racing, and then we'd set up the next shot, and then we found the ball come, and then he'd hit the ball again until he got all the way down to the golf course for this like final. It was like a collaboration between BMW and Oakley. It was like super cool to film. And there was the order, everything. They loved everything. Like it started with Greg in the car, and then he was on top of the mountain, and he was ripping his bike and hitting golf balls. But the shot in question was the golf ball. I showed the ball, like he would hit the ball, and then I showed the ball landing, so where he was going to end up. So essentially we had like thrown the ball into the frame so like the camera could see it, and then we would see all the riding, and then he would so you would like basically create like a premonition. See the ball, this is where the ball's gone, okay, he's got to go to this brand place. But they wanted him to hit the ball, ride, and then you see the ball landing, and then he rocked up straight away. And I like just didn't agree with the order of that, and I was like, oh, and eventually it's just one of those things where I'm like, you know what, it doesn't really matter. But I still like, I show people that video today, and some people are like, but why is the ball like, and I'm like, exactly. It doesn't make sense, like the way they put it in the order. So like, no one's right and wrong, but that person wasn't 100% right in that one. Like everyone has their own way in like how they perceive these things in this creative way of doing it. But I think, yeah, that and when you have to turn from a creative into a debt collector sucks a lot. Like that's the one, probably the only thing I miss about the old AV business that I had was I had administration Wonder Woman. She was awesome. And she would be the person who'd be the first point of call to follow up on outstanding invoices and things. And then when it got to a point where it was like, okay, these dudes aren't paying, then I would like phone them up. And if they still, then I would literally drive there and like become a debt collector. But that was different. Like now you're the creative person. So you're playing good cop, bad cop, and it sucks. I don't like being in that role, but I think it's just like having open communication with the clients and like having the deal, like everything spoken about up front is like super important to me, because if you can like, what do you need? By when do you need it? By what is the budget? Or who's getting paid what? By when is the payment being made? Especially when like there's subcontractors involved. Now I've got editors working with me. Like if I have all of that out the way, like that's my like business side and that's sealed, cool, done, paperwork out, then I've kind of separated it. Then I can start the project and not have to worry about it. That's my ideal way to deal with that situation.
Yeah.
But it has to be like spoken about clearly. And it's same with people that I work with. The people that I work with, like yourself and other guys who film with me and people that like, I think the people that I've gelled with the best are the people that are like a little bit more open about that side of it. People that are like very like not willing to share information on like how they work with licensing and how they work with money and what are you charging and like why hide it all away. It doesn't matter. Someone's going to find out anyway. Those are the people that I gel with the best and the people that I like to work with. And I think we all work the same way, similar way with our clients. But all those sort of business skills from back in the day helped me a lot with having to try deal with that side of it, like be the administrator, the accountant, and then be the creative. So I think being the creative first, that's probably the barrier for not being the person who's going out there like a creative director from an advertising company who would like, okay, we're going to go pitch to this brand and we're going to go sell them this content. We're going to get that account and we're going to have a retainer for a few years, because I put the business side first, whereas they're only on the creative. They don't do the business. Then they're like, oh, they signed up, cool. Send them off to billing and then let them deal with all the rest now and sign the contracts and stuff. But like, we have to do it all. So that's a good time to talk about AI.
Yeah.
Oh, that helps. So,
okay. Yeah, let's jump into that. AI, obviously that's like it's like the next level of going from horizontal video to vertical video, and people are like cringing with having to do it. AI, there's artificial, the like generated stuff. There's tools that you can use to make your life easier. It's some people hate as soon as you say AI, they're like, oh, I hate it. You know, back in my day, we had to do everything on a piece of paper or whatever. What's your thoughts been on AI, and how do you see it? Yeah, well, let's just go from there.
I want to ask you a question, but did you have any feedback on your photos when you asked the AI thing? Did you have anything that people were like super against it or super for it? Or I did see some stuff like there's no soul or whatever.
Yeah, there were 3 people. Everyone had a negative comment. There was a really negative comment that person like deleted it afterwards, so that it was gone. But I saw it before they deleted it.
And then I said something dumb as well, I think.
I don't know. I don't know if you did. I think you just messaged me saying we should talk about AI.
Okay. We're talking about, we saw the future.
Yeah. To me, it was, I mean, okay. What I feel like at the moment, the most of the initial reaction seems to be negative from people. The initial one, or at least the ones that people are like saying out loud. Maybe the ones that don't have a negative one are quiet about it. But
I think the question you need to ask is the people that are saying things about it, how much have they actually used it? And what kinds of AI platforms have they used? Because just seeing your post is quite an interesting one. So people seeing an image that was created by AI, or going on to Instagram's AI image creator, for instance. So something that's really easy for anybody to use. Type in a cat in the windowsill. I mean, I actually put up something similar to yours before, but I had the real photo first, and I was talking about this sort of juxtaposition of worlds. And I made this little picture of a cat. So like, looks like the cat that's adopted us, like a little black cat sitting in a window. And I mean, it is like this weird animation, like something you would see on like the front cover of like a kid's book that was made in bulk. Like it's a strange image. They're obviously, but this is like the free for everyone to get into. So this is like what people are mostly being exposed to. And it looks not great.
Yeah.
It's like, it looks fake. So I think most of those people haven't actually experienced the other side of it. And so my experience with AI is, firstly, my thoughts on it, I was never against it. Like I never hated it. I was kind of neutral with the whole thing. I firstly thought, like now, my thought is that I think we've actually been using some of these things, which are just like trending words now, for a long time. Like, I think something like Siri is actually like AI-based voice assistant, which has been in our pocket for quite a while, and Google Assistant and whatever else you're using. There's text-to-voice things that have been around for. So my first real meaningful use and experience with AI is Photoshop's generative expand or adding things. So I first tried, obviously, they're like, draw me a snake over here. Like I took my phone photos and I played around with these things. But then I started finding it to be quite a useful tool because of creating, using a lot of mobile generated like images and things like that for like a mountain bike coaching brand that I do the social media for and like try to keep up with posts and things. We make these posters and I always have these phone photos and 99% of them are shot in portrait, but they're very narrow. And some of them are shot on like, I don't know, some sort of Samsung phone. It's even narrow. It's like super skinny.
Have a weird aspect ratio. Some of the Samsung
exactly.
phones.
So I'm like, okay, I get it. Most of the stuff we use is posted on stories and things and it works, but I have to make these posters which have like proper design on them and stuff. But none of the photos ever work. And all I have now, even though I'm a photographer, like I don't get out there and get like current content for that. I can't be all over. So I'm using what's been sent through and I choose sort of the best images and make a little poster out of it. So expanding the canvas to the aspect I need. So now I've got like a kid riding a bike and this, like, I was blown away. I was like, I remember having a photo of a kid going off like a wooden drop at the Durban Hills mountain bike trails. And like, it just didn't, it was a perfect photo. It was exactly what we needed. And he was wearing all the right stuff, but like the photo wasn't, and I just extended it and I made this wide screen back and it made like the hills perfect. And it added the fynbos in perfect. And I'm like, this is the most useful thing. Like I could have done this in Photoshop. It would have taken me like 7 hours to make this. Probably I'm not fast in Photoshop and I've never been good at like that kind of composition. Like I've always just kind of left my photos as they are and done a tweak. Never really added or removed much ever. And I was like, this is like the most useful tool and I use it all the time. And I think the other side of AI, which I've been like, so I haven't played around with all the like proper paid for like DALL-E and stuff, but I see like a lot of it's all intertwined now. So like I've shot a couple conferences and they've all in the tech space where they were companies offer some sort of communication tools and then they were not really into the AI thing, not talking about it. That was like 2 shows ago, and now they had a whole thing based on AI and they had experts and speakers. Like the one, I can't remember her name. She was like, she studied at MIT. And she was like literally South Africa's like expert in AI. She had such a cool presentation. She had all these tools. So one of the things she told me about was a research tool like called Perplexity. And then, so instead of using Google to research anything where you can, like you're searching for stuff, but you're also getting like ads coming up as your first thing. This is like a search engine without the ads. And it's such a cool tool. So I use that to search something out, like figure out what percentage my insurance has increased because of a claim. Like I was like, I literally didn't know how to do that calculation, but like the way the information's presented is so nice. It's like reading a nice clean news website. And then it has links that you can go through to, but it's different to Google. Works the same way, but definitely recommend it. And then obviously there's ChatGPT, which everyone uses. So I've started using that a lot more. Like I've tried the whole sending email things. I think that sort of AI is great, but it's going to be way more useful. And I think all the negative people are going to step away from being negative when it becomes like something that's added into a Gmail account. So you would go voice into text. Hey, Gmail. Hello. Cool. Please write an email to Dylan asking him how he is. I'd like to find out like when is the next production and could he give me like estimated, like you speaking all that information and you almost might be even speaking the whole email, but it formulates the sentences so well. Like I can be like quite harsh in some emails, especially when it's at some points, and I have to, and I type kind of because of that corporate background. It's like I find when my email voice is a lot like it's just a bit like too hectic enough. So sometimes I always add in how's it and cheers, like just to like lighten things. But I asked ChatGPT to write me some emails and like following up on money. And I was like, how can I write this politely? Because the way I'm going to ask these people for money is not going to come across nice. Because I'm up to here now. Like promises have been dropped and this isn't cool. And I just like spitted out this paragraph. I was like, wow, that's a much nicer way of asking for it. Like, okay, cool. Like you literally say, please write me an email asking this person nicely but firmly, like when this and this will happen. So I found those tools great. I do think they need to be integrated. And they will be. I mean, I think Apple's pushing out their version of AI, Apple Intelligence or whatever it's called, AI.
Yeah.
I think we'll see it more. There's one thing that AI definitely doesn't have. And I found this in trying to write voice. So we spoke about the voiceover thing. Firstly, this AI generated version of a voice. So you can load an audio file, found to one tool. I haven't experimented with a lot. It's still a bit robotic. But all those AI things, they are obviously really good ones, like the one on Artlist, which I've heard some samples are like fantastic. But the images, the voiceover, the pretty much everything that it's created without like multiple prompts, and essentially your brush that you would have been using is your keyboard now. Lacks that soul. So like, for instance, in a voiceover, it's like someone, when I studied sound engineering, our lecturer told us the best parts of like music is like the gaps between the music, because when you're creating like a song on whatever Logic or something, you're creating an electronic song and you're making a drum beat, but you can see your marks and you're putting every beat exactly on the mark. It's not how a human would play it.
Yeah,
there would be like irregularities, and that's what gave it the soul. Like that's probably, I suppose, why like jazz is like so loved by certain people, because it's got like the rhythm just changes so much. And I find the same with like a voiceover that's generated by AI. I would like to come and see you today. It is fantastic. It's not like it is fantastic. I would love to come and see you today. Like there's that difference at voice. So I suppose artists in the creating image world, like people that were creating images for like stock sites and things like that, are probably struggling a lot. Voiceover artists aren't getting all the crazy jobs they were getting before because people are starting to use these tools. But a real campaign that wants real stuff and something that hasn't been done and seen before, is AI is not going to make that, because it only can work off what it has been done. It's not going to work off from something that's never been created before. Like it doesn't know how to compute that yet. So it like doesn't have the soul. So I'm not really like worried about it, because there's still phone calls coming. There's still like, there will always be, if you work in, I mean, essentially the product space, or let's call it like my main business has been sports fashion, if you had to call it something, and even in sports equipment, they have a new model. They can't type in, Oakley can't go, hi, like create me an image with these glasses on this athlete running up this mountain. Like, I mean, I suppose you could, and you never know where it'll go. But right now, definitely not going to, the person's definitely going to have like a finger missing, and like the shadow is going to be a bit weird, and it's not going to really work. So, I don't know. That's my thought. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, I mean, for me, it's, I still see it as a tool. And I think what it's going to do is at least like we have this issue with when we've used, say, like ChatGPT with our current business. So we're like, okay, let's ask one of the like staff to use ChatGPT when they're writing the captions for this client. But the problem is that we can see it's been written by ChatGPT, and then the skill is going to come into it. How do you make ChatGPT not look like ChatGPT? So you still need a person who is good at like writing or copywriting to be able to see this is a crappy sentence. This is something that could be done better. So you need a proofreader, or you need the person who was originally the caption writer to be able to work ChatGPT to get it to something good. So because if you just take ChatGPT from the first one, it's like, okay, obviously that was with ChatGPT. They use these words that are just like so obvious that it was ChatGPT. So I feel like if everyone uses it on their basic level, everything's going to look like ChatGPT. And now what makes things better again is going to be the person who's using that tool will make it better. So if I ask like Midjourney, like generate an image of this thing, it's going to come out and be like, oh, cool, that's nice. But now everybody can do that. Everybody can type in that sentence I typed in. But what's going to make it better is that I'm like, yeah, but I don't really like this part of it. This needs to be a bit different. And then I'm able to work it.
Does Midjourney know what "yah" means though?
Hey? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. How's it?
How's it, Bruce? So,
yeah. Okay.
Well,
but it's about custom, like the captioning has always been the key to a great AI generated anything.
Yes. And I feel like that if it levels the playing field of that everybody can get the first row of things, there's still going to be the human element that makes a difference. That's how I see it. So it's like if everybody gets an HD camera, it doesn't mean they can all tell a story. You still need to be able to tell a story. Yeah. So if everyone gets access to this, it doesn't mean, I feel like in the beginning there are maybe certain jobs that won't be around as much, or it'll be more of a niche job. But where it counts and where it's important, it's still going to be needing a human to mold it into what it needs to be.
There might even be more jobs. Think about this. Was there, with all the platforms now, we had this experience the other day. There was someone running Facebook, there was someone running Instagram, and there was someone running TikTok.
Yeah, it's like
those were three jobs that didn't exist in a live environment. Yeah. So now you're going to need your AI moderator 100%. Who specializes in this. Hands. and actually, if you go on LinkedIn at the moment, there's already those kind of job positions. Yeah. We need an expert. I'm like, geez, are you finding an expert? Like, don't say you need 5 years experience, because that doesn't exist. It
wasn't even around yet.
Yeah. So,
no, it's true.
It's very true. But it could be more jobs.
I think it will be like different jobs, and the ones that we are used to, it might. So say, for instance, like let's say that video editing becomes completely able to be done by AI in a sense.
I would absolutely love
it. But you would still want to be in the driving seat of AI saying like, oh yeah, but I don't like that part, change that. It's going to hoist something together, which might be fine for most corporate clients, whatever. But if you're wanting to make like a special project that you like, you're going to like use it, but
that's exactly what it needs. So it's a tool.
Yeah.
It's a great tool now. So let's say on your side with the captioning from AI, you need to, and I've had the same thing, like I've got it to write me a basic 30-second voiceover script, but I change a lot of it afterwards. But I've got the body of it there. But and my prompt
you changing a lot of it, that's what I mean, is from your years of experience in what you did.
Yeah.
You made those changes, and those changes are significant at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Whereas some other random person who's just come into this field and be like, oh, did you use ChatGPT? Put it out there.
Yeah.
It's going to
I mean, I'm talking about it from the point of creators. So that initial argument or joke or meme that went around, like, people are worried about agencies or production companies like not needing us anymore, and they're going to create their own thing. But they first need to know what they want. And they need to be able to explain that in words. And make me a viral video. I'd like to.
Yeah.
Do you think AI is very polite?
Yes.
Like, have you tried to ask it to be angry? Like,
I haven't.
I want to try that now.
I haven't tried.
I want a grumpy. Yeah.
Like, I'll come up with an idea. I'll be like, "This is what I'm thinking of doing." And be like, "Oh, that seems like a really great idea." I'm like, okay, but like, you don't have to be. Actually, need a bit more
Yeah. So on the, I mean, I've joked about that for a long time. Auto edit, it would be like, it's like the dream. I mean, it's like, it was that guy that was at the Cinemate talk who was like, I hate editing, but I love the editing. I was like,
Michael,
you are, he was very funny. I was like, you are my spirit animal, bro. Like that is me. Like I like the process of like getting all my footage, and then I spend so much time watching it all. Like before it's even on the timeline, I'm like, oh yeah, that was cool. Okay, let's get that. Sometimes I'm even forgetting to like flag, and normally I'm okay with that. I like favorite sections. Okay. And then sometimes I'm dropping all these things on a timeline, and then I'm like, I haven't made an edit yet. I just dropped a bunch of random stuff. Like I actually need to start again, and I get rid of all of it. It's like, what a waste of time. Anyway, part of my process. But I was like, this auto edit button. But some of my favorite edits, so we took going into AI, but this is how the AI assistant, my dream. So like, let's say I've got my song and then I've marked it. So like to the beats, I've created a mark, like, and it's like cool because I enjoy it. It's like playing an instrument. I'm like, okay, now I know where all the cuts are going. I'm going to put a cut on every single mark along, and I'm going to have this whole edit to the beat. Okay, let's go. And then I start to edit like really fast in that way. So I want an AI one that's like that. So I just like can talk or drop a beat and and I'm like, green car, red car, B-roll, wide shot, mid shot, So it's like, it'll be amazing. And it just, okay, now can you find all the clips that are like too warm and drop them like by so much? Can you add an adjustment layer? Can you just show me a LUT? No. Show me another one. You know, like literally like you see in the movies.
I want to look more like this.
I don't understand how fast the computer have to be for that to be like instantaneous, because already they're like, I mean, computers are great at the moment. They like really are like so fast for the kind of like information that we're putting into them and expecting results like straight away with no wheels. But I think like we're going to see a lot of cool things. I haven't played with any of these auto edit functions in like, let's say within GoPro system or I know I've used, there's like they call it an AI tracking thing in the Insta360 app. Like I've enjoyed playing around with that camera. It's like, I sort of lost my love a long time ago for like POV cameras, like GoPros and stuff. I literally own one. I never used it unless I had to go swim in the water, and I don't know water housing. But this is like, I'm like, this is so much fun because like I can choose what I want to see afterwards. And even though the quality is like, still seems like a GoPro and you got the finished shot, it's just got this uniqueness to it. And they've got that tracking point so you can like put it on someone. But to me, I'm like, that's just tracking. Like it's seeing a person, but that means DJI should say the same thing about like when you have the drone flying following a car and you draw a little square in the car and it follows the car. It's the same thing. Like to me, it's like they're just putting the AI thing there because that's the cool thing to have there, you know. So yeah, AI, it's definitely not going to go away, and I think it helps. Like speed us so much up. Like so anybody who doesn't like it and like they haven't actually used it to what its full capacity can be, like. Some of the websites, like the creative things like Canva, and I've fiddled a bit with that stuff. Like I'm not really a graphic designer, but like it is nice to have help to make something. Like if I wanted to make really stylized stories, for instance, like but it does require time. Like it actually still requires a bunch of time to like, especially when you're starting off getting to learn the tools. But I mean, I can vouch for, ChatGPT, but I can vouch for the Perplexity thing. I think that's probably one of the coolest applications I've seen, just because like Google is such a staple of like looking for things, trying to find out someone's name, trying to figure out something. It's not quite like ChatGPT because it's still giving you like references and things like that. Whereas ChatGPT is giving you like an answer in text. This is still giving you a link so you can go verify the information. I like that. Like that's pretty cool.
So one of the ways I found ChatGPT very helpful with, in a practical way, is with interviews, and you basically take the transcription out of like Premiere Pro or whatever you're using, and you put that into ChatGPT with the time codes on, and then you can find interesting places that you maybe want to cut stuff from.
What did you ask ChatGPT to do? Do you say, find me interesting stuff?
So I'll be like, here's a 15-minute interview I did with the owner of this company about how they got started. Can you like suggest 5 parts where I could use as the beginning of the interview? And then I want to go into this part, and you just enter, and then it will give you the time codes of it, which I can then send to our video editor. To begin with this part or whatever. But also if it's a long interview, like an hour, that's very helpful too. Because you can even ask it to pull like 10 emotional like sentences
so
that he spoke
about. So you can ask it for emotional stuff. Because that's to me like from...
So obviously it doesn't pick up tone because I'm putting a transcription in, but it's going to listen to words. But still, I was still there on the interview. So I'll look through the things and be like, oh yeah, that's not what I was looking for.
Okay.
I'm not just going to take that as like fact.
Okay.
But it does help me find stuff and reorder things potentially. And like, okay, cool. Can you like suggest, I want to make a 5-minute edit out of this to give me what you think I should use. And you can try that to see and be like, okay, cool. But I like take out that part and put this in.
Auto edit.
And then take that into, it's been very helpful to go through interviews.
So I filmed a 15-minute interview today. And I'm going to try that. And we're going to feed. But and he's a Zimbabwean guy. So he's obviously his native language is Shona. So his English was
not so good.
It was good, but it wasn't great. He couldn't get across his emotion. It took him a while to get across his emotion. And there was some like personal questions, and then some like why do you love what you do?
Yeah.
So I think the first hurdle was getting the audio. I mean, I found a couple tools for that to like export the audio, then extract the copy from the audio, and then send that copy to. So I do that with clients. They're the ChatGPT for me, so I do that process,
and then you let them choose.
Yes, and it's actually really helpful, so they can see the text one. The hard part about that is, yes, you can't see the tone, and secondly, you can't see the pauses between the words.
Yeah.
So sometimes they're like, "Oh, I want from this word," and I'm like, or this time, and I'm like, I can't cut that.
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't really work.
They're speaking words into each other.
Yeah.
And it's quite funny how it translates, especially some like South African names or Dutch oriented names. They're like so funny. But that is a very cool tool.
But like play with it. It definitely doesn't always get everything right. I've tried it and I did the thing and I was like, okay, cool. Now at the end of the time, give me the time codes for those. And then like there was a few of the time codes that were not correct because like Philip was like, I can't find that anywhere within that 5 minutes.
So you asked ChatGPT for the time codes?
Yeah, because when I've put the transcription in, it's got the time codes in already. You know, so when I do the transcription in like Premiere Pro, at least it gives me.
So it's giving you time codes and text
and the transcription.
And ChatGPT couldn't tell you what the time was that was already actually in the text that you put there.
Yes, it was. It would get it right some of the time, but some of the time it was wrong. So I don't know why it sometimes didn't make it.
Do you
right,
think like so let's say on a short interview. Like 15 minutes, but you're making a 3-minute content piece. Okay?
Yeah.
So now you're trying to pull information out of it. Do you think it would have been quicker to, I agree with the whole exporting the text thing and reading through it, and or putting it into ChatGPT, but do you think it would be quicker to rather just read through it yourself?
Yeah.
And there's not that many words.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
if
like,
short.
Because you remember the interview as the creator or the person filming it or director.
Yeah.
And then, and then like, okay, cool, that was cool, this was cool. You've got the time codes, go straight to those points, extract those bits, chuck them in the edit, and then you start to feel the emotion. But again, the AI thing, like the tone is so important. So like when I think that's the difference between like a really awesome Netflix documentary, call it that, is like those bits where someone's like just walked into the scene and like started to speak to the kid, like all those bits added in, like the real feeling you get, like that connection as a director or getting to know someone when filming them, and adding those things in to make it just so much more real and the person more relatable. Like AI will never get that right. Like that's really down to being the creative.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so
and also like if I take the transcription, I just ask for those things. I'm like, okay, cool, that works. I'm not seeing any of those other moments, which if I had watched it myself would be like, oh, but that would be so cool to begin off with that little section or something like that. So,
I think so. When I went to the States, I did a conference for 2 days. And I mean, it's obviously quite different to what I normally do, but like, cool, camera work, conference, it was a lot of talks. And I came back with I don't know, 10, 15 talks, or each one an hour long. And they all needed, like I had to sync cameras, and then some days the AV guys gave me the wrong, I had to like do different tricks with the sound. Eventually I got it all synced up, and I had frame rate problems. Let's not go there. Like the first two videos I shot at 25, and then I realized I should be shooting everything at 30 because I'm in the States and I'm not in a PAL country, and the flickering on the screen. Anyway, fixed that out. There was some massive workarounds to get that to work. But this is where I think an AI tool would have been helpful, because then the client came to me and he's like, cool, I'm happy with the once I'd sent each hour-long one. And I didn't really watch the entire thing. He's like, but in this and this and this presentation, like we're seeing toolbars and things on their presentation. I just want like the clean presentation. Can we crop that? But that meant like going in deep into all of these things and like making sure that the presenter, because we had a screen recording, gave us the right screen, or cropping one of my angles, which was a hell of a lot of work. Like that could have been something that was just solved. And like, hey, AI, can you go into this piece of voice and get rid of all the dead spots for me? And any like buts, whatever. Remove, like remove it, drop it down, and let me know that it's still there, and I can double check that it maybe should or shouldn't go. But like I think those would be super helpful tools.
And I mean, I think especially there for say like a conference, that example I use now of the ChatGPT would be, this isn't an emotional interview thing; it's a factual thing, and you're like, okay, we need to cut the snippet where you spoke about, I don't know, apples. You use ChatGPT, please get the part where you cuts about apples. Or the editor can be doing that without even having watched it. So you maybe know where he talks about apples, but the editor is like, I haven't even seen this.
Like in your, like having a social, like having an editor doing social stuff, or shorter content or whatever format, and you working remotely from them to be able to send them information. I mean, so I don't have an editor that works for me a lot on that basis. And when I send off corporate work to an editor that works with me, I let her decide, because she's great and she's fast at doing that. If she's using ChatGPT, good for her. I don't really, like, I just want to get the product back, and then I look at it and I give my sort of point from a like aesthetics point of view for the B-roll and everything. And obviously I listen to the story and it has to make sense, but I use it because she's good at it. But I think a cool tool is when you're making, for this podcast, like you want to make a short, like Insta highlight reel, like find me a funny moment, or find me a part where we're talking about AI. Whatever.
Exactly. I'll do that for this one, and we'll see what comes out.
It will find it. See what comes out, and there's your like thumbnail real preview. I don't know, highlight. Teaser. Whatever it's called.
What is your advice for someone saying, I'm struggling getting clients? Let's talk about it in our industry. So it's creative, videographer, photographer. Someone's new at this and they're like, how do I get clients? What do I do? What would you say to them?
I should probably listen to my own advice. Well, I think I create content for advertising. My worst trait is that I don't advertise myself. So if I'm not getting the clients that I would like to have, is because they don't know that I'm around. But I've been doing this for a long time, and I have a lot of clients that come back to me over the years. I have some that don't, some that do, new ones that come via word of mouth. But if I was brand new in today's landscape of what's available there, you'd have to put money behind it. So, and in the form of create your brand, you are your brand, advertise on, like, put some of your stuff out there as a reel, let people know who you are on like Insta, on TikTok, on whatever. Like, if you want to sell your DOP skills, then tell people about it and create an ad for yourself. Like, that to me is the most, so if I look at Instagrammers that are doing really, really well, a lot of them are doing videos about how to become better at Instagram. And they're like these filmmakers, and they talk about being filmmakers, but I don't see anything on their feed. Like, there's no cinematography reels, and there's no, like, I mostly show my clients' work and my passionate photography stuff. Like, I'm terrible at advertising me. Like, I'm like, hey, I'm Troy, I'm a storyteller. the end. Like there's all this mystery around, but that's not very, like if I had that now, like if I started that account now and that's my approach to it, I wouldn't have anybody coming to me. Like I'd have to go knock on doors, and you have to, and you start with, I started with the people that I know. So like I worked within the circles that I knew and with what I knew. So that's what got me through cycling, and then cycling, and I come from a music background, so I gelled well with the music. So you work with what you know, and then you build on from there. Try as much as you can to work with what you like to watch, because you're going to be watching a lot of it, because that's what happens in the visual industry. So, and if you're passionate about something, people will pick up on that. But yeah, most important is, I think the biggest mistake people make is like they undervalue themselves and they undervalue their time. So even if you don't have 250,000 rands of equipment on your back, which is like a stand nowadays to have 2 cameras and lots of lenses and whatever, and even if you're just using your phone, your time is so valuable. So like undervaluing your time just to get the job is like shooting yourself in the foot for the long run. And it's, sounding like the grumpy old man in the room, but like everyone in the industry who's been around for long enough knows it, that like you're kind of killing it for everyone else, because now that client who knew that they got this person for X amount always wants to get that person for X amount plus 10% per year. Like that's what they think is a fair price for it. I haven't been exposed much to the please do this for the exposure kind of scene, and I see a lot of people that moan about it, and I suppose I knew what my value was, and I don't really get into those conversations. But I somehow ended up one the other day on Facebook where like someone was looking for someone to shoot a cycling specific thing, and I was like, hey, this is like what I do. I actually specialize in exactly what you're asking for. And then they were like, backwards and forwards. So what is your rate? I'm like, this is my rate per day. And they literally went, ha, that's not going to work. And I was like, okay, well, sorry. But like you asking me to go like on a mission for 10 days, I didn't even validate the equipment and the whole why it costs what it costs. I'm like, this is what I charge. And then they gave me, and they're like, I said, well, what's your budget? They gave me the budget, and I said, cool. And then after they gave the budget, they said to me, people in Europe would come and do this for free because it's an awesome experience. And I'm like, listen, I'm going to stop you right there, because people in Europe are charging, their minimum rate is double my rate. Yeah. And I'm definitely not the cheapest, but I'm also not the most expensive in South Africa. Anyway. Yeah. But this is like, I know what people charging you, and I'm like, and then it goes up much higher. So laughing at what we charge is like, and then like saying that's not going to work. And then the whole conversation took a turn, and it like ended civilly and things like that. Okay. But it's just about understanding your value and when to say no, and when to like invest time. Like when to invest time when you think it's going to be worth it in the long run. So I don't know, I suppose from an invoicing point of view, one thing I learned long ago. So if you are going to go down the route of like doing something really low, my trick has always been, well, it's not my trick, actually it was told to me by a friend who did go to film school, like put what the value is of what you're doing on your invoice. And if you're going to discount it down to like 20% of its value or 50% of its value, whatever that is, let them know what this should cost. Because at least you have your base point to always go back and be like, I'll do it for you for this time. Cool. Like, I find myself in those situations. Cool, I'll do it. Like, let's discount. But I want you to understand what this value is and how much I'm giving towards your project, how much I believe in your project. So, so that is one. I have one other thing that I think is like super invaluable. And it's part of the thing is like, ask whoever it is, if you're going to pitch to someone, or someone comes to you to create something, or you know, however, trying to get new clients, like what value can you give them? Like I always think about it, like how is this going to make it better? Like it's hard to say straight away how this is going to sell products that we are creating. For in one way or another, it all becomes part of the bigger marketing side of things. Because I'm talking about mostly my work, which I suppose would fall in the commercial side, not really the documentary, something that gets sold to a network or Netflix. And I'm like, okay, how can I make how am I adding value to their product, or how am I adding value to them? And I like would literally ask them, like, what is valuable to you? Like, what do you want to see? So like understanding the client's needs and understanding what they would like to achieve, and like trying to interpret that in a visual way is, I mean, it obviously takes a long time and it takes practice and, just a bit of patience, and, but that's like, when you put them first and then interpret it, like people pick that up straight away. So like, but as far as trying to get to more clients, back to the original answer, I mean, I kind of answered that. Like, you have to put yourself out there and advertise. You're great at it. I suck at it. But like, there's two different kinds of business. There's my approach, and there's the McDonald's approach. I don't have a real name, but the McDonald's approach is having a lot of clients paying a little bit of money, or having a small amount of clients paying like a bigger amount of money, or what you need, what's valuable to you, but like really good retainable clients, rather than once off all buying stock photos and you never see them again. And everything has a lifespan for sure in it, but some people want to work one way, but like, it's when you're a one person freelancer working with a few others, like it's not sustainable to sell. Like you can't create enough great photographs and sell them all for 10 Rand each. That's a lot of photographs. Like you physically can't create that many photographs that are all sellable, like because someone still has to part ways with 10 Rand and they still want something great. If you just took 1,000 photos of a table, like, and trying to sell that, it's unless you're selling the same thing over and over and over again, but then that's not really going to work either, because people want something that's different and unique to them. That's what they're paying for. So,
I think that thing about the value adding or asking what it is that they value is super important, because I've like noticed, it's something I've learned as well, I think. And it's like, I've assumed a client wants this for this reason. And later on I found out, but it was actually a total different reason why they wanted to make this video. Like I had almost like, it was like recently I had the one client needed a video about their staff. And I was like, okay, but we're doing social media content. How's this going to work? And I couldn't get it around my head that this isn't going to work on social media, because it's not. It isn't a piece for social media. The social media audience doesn't care about it. But what the client was doing that for was for the employee. The purpose of the video was for the employee to like feel good. And that was what it was for. It wasn't for the other things. Yep. That was why it was there. So that was the value he was getting out of it, was for the employee, not for the fact that it wasn't going to do well on Instagram. It didn't matter. That was the actual reason of it.
Yep.
Shot, Troy. I think, that's cool.
Cool.
Last, where can people find you online?
No way.
At your house? What's your address?
Apparently my website doesn't even work. I need to go check that out.
Yeah, so if people want to...
Can you help me make a website? And you're so great at it.
Yes, we can. I'll send you my
Last question. Do you think it's worthwhile for someone in the creative industry to have a website anymore? Or like, is an Instagram account and a Facebook page, whatever, a MySpace good enough?
It's a good question. So we have a lot of like Pinterest clients, and Pinterest needs a website in order to really function. Yeah. So in that context, if you're an online store type of person, you need a website. As a creative, I would still say it's hard. It's a good question, because I would say yes, have a website, but I can't say I've got anything from my website in the last
But maybe there's some sort of credibility than people who haven't worked with you before, and this is probably good for new people in the industry, that like having something with a bit of a reel and archive of images and a showcase, I suppose, provides that credibility to them, like, oh, this is a real person, they're a company or a freelancer, and so I definitely still has its value.
I also think like it's because the social media platforms change all the time, it still feels good to have a home place, which even if there's not a lot of people going there, it will always be there no matter if Instagram's around or not. It's
nice to showcase your work on a platform that will stay the way you want it to stay. Kind of like the way I film footage and make sure that I have like my backup 16:9 that I might never ever use, but maybe one day I might need to use.
100%.
Hopefully one day.
But yeah, basically people want to see your work or get hold of you.
Retroyspective on everything.
Okay, I'll add that.
Not retrospective.
Retroy.
Which often happens.
Yeah.
Then you're going to be looking back in the past and thinking of memories and going down. But you use perplexity and then type in
retrospective.
Who is retrospective?
Okay.
I should do that.
Yeah.
I haven't done that.
Short, man. Thank you. That was lekker.
Thanks for having me on.
We'll do another one in the future.
When I test my AI on my interview and you test the AI on this podcast.
There you go.
Cool.
Short, man. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. If you made it all the way through, thank you very much. I really appreciate you listening. And thanks, Troy, for being here. It was very cool to have you on. And if you want to be part of this series, please don't forget to let me know in the comments or reach out to me. Always looking for more people to have a chat with and share the things that we are learning about. So thank you very much for being here. And don't forget to subscribe, give it a like for the algorithm, drop a comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video.